Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Issa, Arwin, Nummy, and Sleeping Warrior. How are you all doing, gentlemen?
Hello.
Hello.
Same.
Yeah, what up, gentlemen? Good stuff today. I see we're having a hard time understanding angular diameter or something's going on. Seems like I was listening to the show before, and the one gentleman had proclaimed that he'd calculated it, and then he didn't know what it was. It's kind of odd.
Nobody understands what we were explaining. It was so difficult. The entire world doesn't understand it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing is I think there are people that do understand it, but I think almost like what's got me is almost like the one gentleman was asking about what's next, and I think it's almost like it's just about asking the agencies that have or let's say like Metabunk. It's like Metabunk has to. I would hope really the next step would be Metabunk would concede certain points, and they have conceded certain points, right?
Yeah.
So I would think that would be a good objective by all of this, right? You know what I mean? To try and come to some common language as regards to this subject.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah,
that sounds tangible to me, right?
Mick West has been known to make changes to his calculator based on reasonable criticisms.
Right, he's a gentleman. He's been a gentleman to us. You know what I mean? At least I've talked to, or at least if I'm not mistaken, I think he was. I'm not sure if he was on Flat Earth Court, but he was on with Riley a couple times, and he was a gentleman. You know what I mean? He happened to think that you could see curvature at 30,000 feet, or even 150 feet, if I'm not mistaken. At one point, remember that one?
Yeah. Well, he will give you some sort of intelligent and articulate response if you present an intelligent and articulate argument or criticism, right?
Just get a mic check from Anthony. Can you say something, Anthony?
He's a tricky one, though. I mean, It's not. I think that sometimes he's, a little wiggly himself, but at the same time, he will get, a response that you can then proceed to argue with further, right?
Right. I think it's an honest scientific, because I think some people look at quote unquote ballers as though you guys are lying or this, that, the other thing. When in reality, I think it's just it could very well just be misunderstanding. It's for some reason, but then again, you look at the hubris.
Cognitive dissonance induced misunderstanding.
Well, you look at the hubris of the gentleman that was on before, who was trying to say that he calculated for it, but then wanted you to explain how he could calculate for it or something.
Yeah.
And it's this is the problem, is that this is what I've said before. Half of this discussion is psychological. You know what I mean? You're dealing with a psychology of people, and certain people. I mean, it's nice to know that there is Mick West who will take the criticism and actually have a decent conversation or adjust the arguments. But to argue with people that are because I've noticed that a lot of the people that come into this conversation actually they're more the believers of what scientists say versus being scientifically minded. So the scientists almost take the position of we don't know shit. We're just explaining to the best of our ability, and we're estimations, and we don't prove things. We explain things. But then the believers of those people, they think that what they've said is the actual end all be all of things.
Yeah, or people like Wiggles, they can do math and they think that proves something, right?
Right, and it's to say, and to think that the idea that you don't, they think that you don't for some reason because you've taken this particular stance or taken interest in this conversation.
Yeah,
and I think it actually it if anything it just it doesn't serve their purpose well. You know what I mean? To be that kind of disingenuous about it. And I don't want to say disingenuous, but it's almost like
Well,
if you're wrong, you're wrong.
well, their fairy tale is better worked out and much more elaborate and well thought out. And we don't have as elaborate and well worked out fairy tales, so they
Well,
must be right.
Well, hold on.
That's their
Here's the
conclusion.
thing, though. I often look at it like this, like it's a luxury to be able to have this discussion, lest we forget. Because it's like we have to be able to sit back and have bellies full and all the rest of it before we can even entertain these ideas. And heliocentrism is a profound starting point to have all this discussion. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like argument for the ball. It makes sense in some ways. There's other parts that don't make as much sense, like dark matter or relativity. You get all into that fun stuff. And I think everyone really is, like, the scientific community is debating these subjects. It's not that far-fetched to have this conversation. It's not unscientific even.
this is the scientific community.
In some degrees, yeah. I mean, well, it's the public scientific community, and but I also think, like, the scientists themselves, I think, would appreciate what's going on here. Whereas the people who
in the scientific priesthood.
the scientists themselves,
Well, I keep bringing this up, but I don't respect this these categories of the layperson and the scientist. I think that that's an invalid. I think that's basically a caste system that is an illusory relationship between an us and them, kind of naturally puts them on a higher plane than the rest of us.
But see, like, I don't think that
Scientist is just another classification for clergy.
But I don't think that they
The
put
word for
themselves.
their clergy.
I don't think they put themselves in that category. It's not like I don't think the scientists put themselves in the category. I think it's the people who believe what the scientists say that try to put them on pedestals that they don't want to be on.
Well, hey, you know what? If they call people lay people, then they're putting themselves on that pedestal, because that was a word that came from the separation between the priests and the church.
Right, but who uses those terms? Bill Nye, TV guys. You know what I mean? Like, not freaking.
No, professors and scientists, science journalists. That term is thrown around constantly.
That's just colloquial, though. That's just but I know what you're saying etymologically.
No, it's not just colloquial. It's really not. It really implies a priestly relationship.
Right, but it's colloquialism though. I feel you though. It's where it comes from, but it's like it's the kind of thing that I don't think that they look at it as so demeaning. They just mean it as someone who isn't working in the lab or working on spectroscopy all day.
I don't think they necessarily mean it as demeaning. I just think that it's inaccurate.
Yeah, that's different. That's what's up.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah. I'm just saying that we don't need to respect these categories. We don't, not because they're even intended to be a disrespect to us, but they're just inaccurate. So we don't have to respect them, right? We don't have to consider them the scientists and ourselves the lay people.
Well, I definitely think one should have self-government. You should respect your own self first, in a way, and that's the beauty of this, is kind of like coming to the senses. But at the same time, we shouldn't belittle their achievements either. That's all.
It's not to belittle their achievements. It's just to realize that you don't need sanctioning from academic institutions to practice science and to be a scientist, right? That they cannot validly claim a monopoly over the arbitration of matters scientific. It's not valid. It's not right. It's not fair. It's not. It's just inaccurate. Doesn't make sense. And they're creating this illusion that people buy into, right? That that we don't have enough education or maybe intelligence have a valid to participate in.
Yeah, see, that's the offensive part on the like the people that are like just coming here and tell flat earthers, especially this particular show. Because I gotta say, I was on Iron Realm Media the other day, and there was a character that I understand why people hate flat earthers because of people like this, and this is not the place for that though. Like this is like an actual, you can have a decent discussion. I don't think it goes overboard in any direction too often.
Well,
But too many people do, and they're jaded by that.
Yeah,
People, the community, a lot of people are jaded by that.
Yeah, but for every, idiot flat earther like that guy, I don't know who it was, but for every idiot flat earther, you're going to have 10,000 equally moronic ballers that are just doing the exact same. It doesn't say anything about flat
psychology,
earth.
bro. Telling you, it gets to psychology talk.
Right. No, I'm just saying though, it doesn't say anything about it's not an argument against flat earth that some flat earthers are idiots, right? Because you could say the same thing about the globe. I mean, most people who will defend the globe as an absolute fact don't have any even the most rudimentary understanding of the model, right?
And they don't think that it's funny. I was talking to a guy who said, I stand on the shoulders of the people that came before. Well, it's like, okay, how do you honor the shoulders that you stand on if you don't even actually go inquire as to what they've done or what they know or how they know it?
Right. Well, that's like, I've noticed that ballers are always saying right? We went to the moon. We launched satellites, we're going to Mars. Like and that's part of this illusion as well, that they act almost like they've contributed something to any of that.
Well, what got me was I was listening to Eddie Bravo was getting yelled at by like this one guy on Rogan's show, one of his producer cats, and he basically was like, how dare you question like the moon landing? Like, I took a physics class. What do you think? I'm stupid? Yeah. It's like, this is the psychological problem that like the collective consciousness of fucking mankind has to address.
Can I just add something there? Didn't they claim that the plaque that they left on the moon had something like we came in peace for all mankind? Words to that effect.
America.
Yeah, so they speak for everybody, right?
Right.
That's right, America. Yeah.
And it's ridiculous, right? I think that same guy you're talking about on Joe Rogan's show was kept using that same like self-including language, right? Where he's like, we went to the moon. Like people act like they had something to do with it, even if it was real, right? Like that they include themselves into the accomplishment, and that attaches them to it, right? Like that, as if they had some sort of contribution to it or something like that.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, like I say, most people, average people who are firmly believe in the globe and laugh at.
Well, look at football teams though. Look at the way people like wear like the whatever jersey, and they're like, we did this, and it's like, motherfucker, pardon my language. You're not even in the game.
Yeah, well, that's the same shit, right? But I mean, at least with that, people kind of know what they're getting. They know what they're doing. They're just
right, but it's same
living vicariously. But I know. But I'm saying that when people include themselves in like that, it's almost like they're the flock getting. That they're acknowledging that they're sort of like the flock of a certain priest or something like that, right? It's like we, the church, right? But they're not necessarily the priest, right? Like they're like, well, we're the lay people, but we're part of this project. It's us.
Well, and that's what's crazy too is when you think of it like that's like it's like instead of like we went from nationalism, you know what I mean, being the issue in like the 1930s, you know what I mean, to like now it's like well, what's that term they use? It's like scientism. It's like this, acceptance of it's weird, man. It's psychological more than anything, like because outside of the discussion, like if you can compartmentalize the space agencies and put that aside and come to the discussion as you guys have come to the discussion with the optical phenomena and like and actually trying to dissect it, which is great.
Yeah,
I think it's just crazy though that people won't even recognize that you almost can't prove it either way in this realm of pre-space agency. You know what I mean? Like you wind up in the 19th century almost philosophic conversation.
Yeah.
where it becomes a choice. And I'm amazed that people who think that, like, are people who are convinced that they're spinning on a rock, you know what I mean, might get hit by an asteroid, volcanoes, California might fall into the sea, all the rest of it, but they can't handle an idea. Like they've got like they're not thick-skinned enough to handle an idea, but they can handle the idea that they might just die at any moment. There's asteroids, there's freaking like I'm just amazed at the lack of thick skin sometimes because of the tumultuous cosmology that they live in, but they can't handle someone thinking differently about a moment in history.
Well, that's very similar to a deeply religious community, right? Like an exclusive religious community, like a fundamentalist government, a religious government, or something like that, right? Where they're dealing with like the forces of the gods, but yet they don't have any to utter a challenge to the veracity of their belief system is they can't take it, they can't handle it, right? It's heresy, it causes they reveal that their belief system is actually quite vulnerable.
Yeah, it's like the most telling thing about it.
Yeah, totally.
Because it's like, hey, did you hear about this? And it's like, no, you're stupid. And it's like, I just asked a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Or why some people, spend so much of their free time and energy arguing against flat Earth while saying that it's stupid and irrelevant. It's like, well, if it's stupid and irrelevant and it's not going anywhere, why are you spending 6 hours a day trolling it? Right?
Yeah. Well, that's what's got me too. Is
Sorry to interrupt.
I look at it like at the end of the day, we all have to share this place together.
Yeah.
Can I just check if we can hear
and
Sleeping
really, it's
Warrior?
like,
Issa? Sorry to interrupt you. Can you say something, Sleeping Warrior? No,
way
we
low.
can't hear you. Sorry, you carry on.
You're way low though, Warrior.
Anthony, you got to turn up or something. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Very
quiet.
very softly.
What the hell's wrong with this machine?
I've turned you right
Okay.
up, so hopefully that'll be just about adequate.
It's because you don't understand science.
Love it.
Yeah, you're a flat card. You can't even figure out the volume when you're...
Yeah. I always think that's hilarious when someone's coming in and they're like, I don't know how to use Google Hangouts, but you're stupid.
Love it.
Oh, yay. So fun. You guys are fun, man. I love listening. I'm so glad you do the show, bro. Thank you, Mr. Oakley. I love it.
It is good fun. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
I really enjoy it.
I always think like, oh, you're going in a little heavy on these guys.
I like the irony of some of the chat as well. So, for example, we've got Lewis Hackett. He keeps saying, don't forget to unsubscribe. But he's probably spent 20 minutes in the show adding to my metrics, watching the show. It's like, thanks for tuning in, Lou.
I like, somebody puts the always flagged, never shared.
Yeah.
Love it.
Oh, God. It's so
Is
good.
that
You
any
guys
better?
are ace. Thanks for
There you
tuning
go.
in.
There you go.
Yeah, Lewis Hackett's one of these people who's always proclaiming how irrelevant and silly and, not inconsequential this whole thing is about flat Earth, but spends a huge chunk of his free time, participating in it, right? And even though it's irrelevant.
Well, everyone knows he's Bill Clinton's love child. It's all good. Don't get P-Mar started.
Could I just ask, with Wiggles coming in, did anybody else get the impression that he had absolutely no idea what I was talking about, given that I'd made a presentation 2 minutes before he started speaking about the exact topic that we were challenging him on?
Didn't Wiggles go on like
no gloves in the house.
Yo, didn't Wiggles like try to like draw a picture of a boat and explain Aristophanes at one point out here?
I don't know. But it was almost like he had no idea what I was talking about. And I did say when I made the presentation that not everybody would understand it. I said, if you were more towards the Rumpus side, you will understand it. If you're more towards the Dawn Treader side, you won't. And it's fine. If you don't get it, it's fine. But he was more towards the Dawn side, so he didn't get it. But
Hey, Josh.
the very point that we were attacking him on was the exact point that I just made 2 minutes before he started speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he was sort of unable to pay attention in his excitement to, show off his basic geometry
No,
skills.
it was cognitive. It was cognitive dissonance induced.
You're causing some feedback, No Globe. Can you pop yourself on mute?
Cognitive dissonance induced giraffe.
You're causing some
No.
feedback there, No Globe.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You're
causing
causing a shitload of feedback.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Blame Truth.
Yeah, but it's interesting that then you explained it. You went through the entire point very clearly a second time, and he wasn't able to pay attention. I think he was a little too excited to actually hear you.
I don't know if you noticed, but there was somebody in chat whilst my microphone Windows decided to start doing updates on me, which was just bizarre. But somebody in chat was saying something along the lines of the angular size resolution point does not apply because the light is passing through the lens of your eye. And I was thinking, what are you talking about, you Burke? So if you deny that the angular size resolution adjustment shouldn't be there, you're basically saying that objects don't get smaller as they go further away from you.
Yeah. It's kind of the example given in the video from Taboo Conspiracy. It's right. It's like you have to double dip. You have to include both of these, both the curvature and the angular size, right?
Correct.
Like single dipping, and then you can, they're just trading off this angular size change as this curvature thing.
Oh, Sean Hufford claims, hey, Lewis, I'm holding a live stream in 3 hours to burn down this angular size straw man. Do you want into it? Well, 2 points. One, it's not a straw man, it's valid. And secondly, why don't you set up a GoFundMe whilst you do it, Sean? You seem to be doing good at the GoFundMe at the moment.
I like that you couldn't even or MIT.
Just want to mention that.
Doctor.
Sorry to interrupt you, Issa. Just want to mention Taboo Conspiracy's video is in the link in the info box. If you want to check it out, it's only about 8 minutes long, but just have a look so you've got a good idea of what's being discussed here.
Well, why doesn't Sean Hufford come on and explain it to us now about how it's wrong?
Link is public.
Yeah,
all are welcome.
And if Sean was to come on, then we wouldn't want the Rumpus on because Sean can actually argue and debate, whereas the Rumpus just
Why
ad homs.
doesn't the sun change angular size?
Who cares? We don't even know what the sun is.
Hold on.
I'm not talking about the sun, but no, please, Sean Hufford, if you have the answer to our, you can
Straw
answer.
man.
Well, I got a question here. This is something I've been thinking about. Is that okay? So let's take it to the angular sun of the diameter, right? Okay, so let's say Josh, is that you, right? What's up, brother?
Yeah, hey man.
Amen. So here's something I was talking with Lewis the other night, and I had considered was that he was trying to conflate the idea of Eratosthenes' experiment with the angular diameter of the sun. That's how we knew. But I thought to myself, when did they invent solar filters? And they didn't invent those till the 1700s. So the idea of knowing the angular diameter of the sun back then, or that it didn't change, that had some kind of historic implication like those, that's maybe not the case. So when it gets in the angular diameter of the sun, that's a new concept from let's say the 1700s. So the idea is that when people try to propose that was put into play by Pythagoras, that's a lie.
Yeah.
But that's just the sun though, right? And that's just because of the glare, because the sun is crazy bright. If we just apply that to the moon sees.
You need a filter for that too, though, don't you? Because it's same at the angular diameter doesn't change on the moon either, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you just zoom in.
Forgive me. Go on.
Gents, give me
Sorry, No Globe. You need some headphones or something, because every time you unmute, you're causing crazy feedback. Every time you unmute.
Yeah.
How am I getting feedback? What the heck?
I don't know, but it's definitely coming from you.
You need headphones. Get your speakers down.
Look at what the Rumpus has just put. He's just put, poor Riley, he doesn't like being called an idiot for being an idiot. He doesn't understand the hidden formula. He doesn't understand that it returns a result in meters of the object. What hidden formula are you talking about? The one that's not there? Or is it one that's that well hidden that nobody else can see it? I'd like clarification on what you mean by the hidden formula.
Yeah, come in and explain it, and then explain it based on the example that was given in the Taboo Conspiracy video as well.
Yeah.
Links in the info box. Click the link for Taboo Conspiracy's video.
Yeah, seeing as though Sean's going to weasel away, you may as well join Rumpus. Let's hear what you've got to say for why the angular size resolution mathematics doesn't appear in the curve calculator. But you accept it.
But you guys are just taking photos from the ground. And
Who cares?
Okay, sure. Who cares? You're just taking photos from the ground. I came in here actually to ask the whole panel. So in a couple of weeks, I'm about to go in. I'm down in Australia, and I'm about to travel the whole breadth and width of Australia. So I'm about to go about 2,000 kilometers north and south direction, about 4,000 kilometers east-west direction. Can any of you propose an experiment that you think that I could do that would help anyone figure out the shape of the Earth?
Yeah,
I
you need
answered
to.
this
I said
question
this at
before,
the end
and
of the
I said
last
to you,
show,
perhaps you
Josh.
could explain how the Tabuki.
I got a pretty good answer for that.
Said at the end of the show, if you want to do an experiment, follow the scientific method. Simple.
No, but Nathan, I'm asking you guys to create I'm about to be a scientific
Yeah, that's
little.
a fair point.
I think independent mapping, physical mapping.
And you're in the south. You're in the south, so that's what's up, actually, because you're in the south.
I'm in the southern hemisphere, and I'm about to be in a position where I can travel 2,000 kilometers north and south, and 4,000 kilometers east and west.
How about this? Do we have someone in South Africa or somewhere else below, somewhere else that maybe you could work with that would be able to, let's say if you did some.
I get it, I said, but I'm right here. I can start with my start position here, and then in a couple of weeks, I'm 4,000.
Okay, well, check this out. Check this out. Just walk 10,000. How about this? Walk 10,000. Walk 10,000 miles in one direction, then make a 90-degree angle. Walk 10,000 miles in that direction, then make another 90-degree angle, and see if that works out.
Can't go forever.
Hey, Rumpus.
It's actually, yeah. I think that is funny, Isa. I get it, but you're wrong. It's actually 10,000 kilometers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Well, why do you guys deal with that French terminology from the 1700s anyway? Why don't you use the good, the natural man's language? Inches and miles.
Inches and
You
miles.
guys use that. You guys. I'm so glad that you admire the French that way. All of Europe loves the French and their mathematical language.
It's just because every one of our measurements is divisible by 10, and you
Boring.
guys, what is it? Okay, straight up question: how many feet in a mile? Go.
It was like 2,500 and something, right?
1,320 and a quarter of a mile.
5,000 something.
Oh, forgive me. I knew there was a 5 in there. Forgive me.
All right,
5,000.
if you're going to play that game, how many seconds are there in a year?
5,280. There you go.
That's right. I'm put 2 and a 5 backwards there. Forgive me.
That's a lot of feet in a mile. Where our one just goes by tens. It's easy.
How many letters in Globe Earth model?
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
All right. So let me ask, without looking it up, do you know what the circumference of the Earth is?
Yeah, 40,000 kilometers. But just to be fair, I'm literally just asking, can you guys think of an experiment that I could do?
Measure the altitude of the Southern Crux, maybe, or something. That would be a fun experiment. As you change in position.
That's not even an experiment.
If you go north or south, I'm just saying. Well, I'm saying just different. I'm fascinated with the Southern Hemisphere. I've never been, so it's like, thank you for offering. Actually,
yeah. I'm
interested to hear your ideas, and if you've got any ideas, because from what I see so far, all you guys, you're just taking photos. You're just taking photos from the ground at things in the distance, and that's cool. I dig what you're doing. It's cool, but I'm offering my services to be someone that's about to be in multiple different points on the planet, on the globe, on the sphere, on the plane. Can you guys
We'll think about it. We'll think about it. We're not going to come up with something in 2 seconds, right? Like, okay, noted. Thank you.
Well, yeah. Do you have
okay, sure. Nummy, you say that, and you say that with some sort of aggression, Nummy. But
what?
You must.
I would say thank you.
Do you have a P900?
Don't you have an experiment in your head ready to go? Like, what would be your number one?
How about this? Star Trails. Star Trails. Star Trails pointed at the pole. That would be a good one. I mean, it's been done before, but it's like you're going to be down there.
That's actually a fair point. Point your camera south, get a time lapse, a long exposure set up on your camera, and then prove that you are actually looking south, and prove that you can see the constellation known as Octantis. There you go.
See if you can see Polaris too.
Yeah.
and take measurements.
Polaris, that would be a
take
good one too.
take elevations of various stars that you can see as you go north and south, and see how it varies, and you'll find that
Right.
it only works on a spherical Earth. The
Doesn't prove
elevation
anything.
you see to
Doesn't
the
prove
stars.
anything.
It only works on a spherical.
Only works if you presuppose R, does it?
It's a
I'm
fact.
pretty sure.
Only works if you
I'm
presuppose a value of
sure
R.
that we all know. That if
Where
I
in
came
Star
back-
Wars?
So in reality,
If
if you
I-
do the measurements, you'll find, if you do those elevations of all the stars and you move north and south, you'll find that
Yes.
the only thing that justifies it is a spherical model.
So you have to
Look,
presuppose
thank
you're on a
Josh asked
sphere.
us. Josh
So you have
asked
to
us.
presuppose you're on a sphere then.
Respect, no
Right? When you're
flat
doing those
earther
measurements,
will
you're presupposing a
agree
sphere then,
with that.
Rumpus. You beg the question when
Well,
you do the
can prove them
measurements,
wrong.
right?
You can make the measurements.
When you make the measurements, do you already presuppose that you're on a sphere when you make those measurements?
No, the measurements.
So you
are
don't
just measurements of
calculate an
elevation, nothing
angle.
else.
You don't calculate
Listen,
any
mate,
angle
try
difference.
listening.
Hold
Try
on, are you
listening.
lying?
No,
You're telling me you don't
doesn't.
calculate any
Try
angle difference on the
listening.
sphere
Try
when you
listening.
take those
Try
measurements?
listening. You
You're
can't
just
sense
lying.
reality, Nathan.
Of course
You
you
can't sense
presuppose
reality.
R,
Can't sense
Rumpus.
reality, Nathan.
That's what you
Reality,
do.
Nathan.
That's what you
Listen to
do,
my
Rumpus.
answer,
You
you'll get the answer.
presuppose
No,
you're on a
it-
sphere
no,
when you
no,
take the
no, it
measurements.
doesn't.
Yes, that's
Listen,
what you
try
do.
listening.
And
I'm
are you just
giving
going to
you an answer.
me
I'm
like I
giving you
don't
an
understand
answer.
what a
I'm giving you an
presupposition is?
answer. I'm giving you an answer. No, you just simply have to take the measurements of your distance north to south and then see what the elevation stars. That's the only measurements you need to make. And then if you try and put those measurements on a flat Earth, you'll find they don't.
So when you put them on a sphere Earth and beg the question with R, it works out perfectly, which is exactly what I've just asserted. You absolute
those
buffoon.
elevations don't work.
You've
Those
just
elevations don't work.
asserted
And then when
that
you
they
put them on
would
a
work
spherical
when
Earth
you
model,
insert a
and when you put them
presupposition
on a
of R.
spherical Earth
Right,
model,
Rumpus?
You'll find they do work.
See,
So
that's what I've just said. That's exactly what I just said. As soon as you beg the question, you claim it works. You're just an absolute moron.
You're gonna pass out, Rumpus. You're gonna pass out.
So there we go. So those elevation
Rumpus.
observations
Hey,
don't prove
Rumpus,
anything,
you see-
and they
you see
prove
what
the
you've
spherical
done?
Earth.
Just
No, they don't. You're a
introduce
moron.
Ridiculous star
No, they don't.
observation.
You're a moron.
This is what I'm trying to do. I'm asking the flat
Do that.
earthers
Do
to
what I
see.
suggested. You'll
I'm
prove the
ask-
spherical Earth by doing that.
No, you
Okay,
can't.
you
You
know
have to
what?
beg
They
the
won't
question and
accept
insert
that,
an R
though.
radius when you
I
take the
mean,
measurements. That's complete nonsense. Rumpus is lying. You have to beg the question. He disclosed it by saying it wouldn't work on a flat Earth, but it would work if you insert the R value, beg the question, and put yourself on a sphere to begin with. Right, Rumpus?
We've already had this argument 1,000 times. Why don't
Yeah.
Rumpus? Do you have an answer to Anthony's point that he made in the first segment?
I haven't seen the first segment, but I presume it's something to do with his random idea that the angular resolution or perspective has got something to do with the geometric calculations of the hidden value in the metabunk calculator and in my own.
Oh, it sounds like you have seen it then.
Insane.
Sounds
Why
like
is
you
that
have seen
insane?
it. So,
Because-
Rumpus,
okay,
first
here's
question.
the start.
Rumpus,
Here's the
first
start.
question, Rumpus. Do things get smaller as you get further away from them?
Correct.
Right. Why don't you account for it in the metabunk curve calculator?
Because that's entirely dependent on the viewing operation. The geometric
Oh, here we go.
calculation just no,
What's
let me
viewing
finish
operation?
my sentence.
What's
viewing
For God's
operation, eh?
sake. Let me finish my sentence. The geometric calculator in the metabunk thing simply tells you how many meters of the whatever it is you're looking at is obscured. Now, what it actually looks like to you as an observer is entirely dependent on how close you are to it in terms of the zoom you're applying to it, whether it's a foggy day or God knows what else. All those visual observations you do are completely independent of the geometric calculator.
But things
So-
do get physically smaller at distance.
Yes, well, that's got nothing to do with what the geometric calculator. The geometric
but they would be
calculator in
smaller,
metabunk
would
is
they
telling
not?
you how many meters.
But you're saying it
but
doesn't
how big
account
those-
for them getting
Hold on, let me
smaller.
finish my sentence.
Just calm
But
down,
then the
Rumpus.
size
Try
of
to
those
listen.
meters
You've
is
just
dependent on the zoom
disclaimed.
you use for your
Rumpus, why
camera.
can't you just
So
stop
that's
talking for a
dependent on your
moment,
viewing
please?
operation. It's got
Rumpus,
nothing to
try
do
to
with the
calm down. I know you've got
geometric
steam
calculator.
coming out your ears. Try to calm down. Why does it not account for things getting smaller at distance in the calculation?
Because it's not trying to do a viewer operations. It's simply trying to tell
But we
you how
are
much-
doing a view operation. We start with our viewer
No.
height.
That's
Then we
exactly
put
the
in
problem.
the distance
Anything
to
is not-
observation
Oh,
from the
I'm
viewer.
sorry.
So it is a viewer
Listen, guys,
operation.
I know you're about to get stuck in a rumpus for the next 20 minutes or whatever, however long it is. I'm not interested in that. I just want to put forward again one more time. If you guys could think of an experiment that I can do while I'm traveling
shut
across
up.
Australia.
Shut up. You've said.
Then-
We've said
then-
we'll get back to you. Thank you. How many more times
All
do we
right,
need to
thank
say
you.
that?
No, Nathan, you don't need to say it again. I thank you, all of you. Think about it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Josh,
Good luck
Bye
with rumpus.
bye.
Josh, thank you. Actually, that's awesome, man. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Isaac. Bye now. Bye.
Right.
So
I've
the
got a
curve counts
diagram
do
on
not
screen
account
of
for the
how
angular
Metabug
size
thing
change
works.
when things get smaller as you get further away, even though they absolutely account for your viewer height and your viewer distance.
Right, but the result from the Metabug calculator is not telling you how many pixels you can see. It's telling you how many meters are visible. And so how many pixels you see in your eye or camera is dependent on your zoom level.
And the angular size of the item. And the angular size of the item you are viewing.
Yes, the angular size has got nothing to do with this.
Yes, it does. Things get smaller at distance.
Yes, but that's got nothing to do with the geometric calculator. That's a separate
But that's our point. That's exactly our point. Thank you for conceding. Yes, it would seem that you haven't accounted for it when you do your geometric calculations. You account for refraction with a begging the question 7/6 of the radius that you don't also have any proof for. However, you don't account for angular size change in the Metabug calculation.
But, and it shouldn't do.
Yes, it should. Things get smaller at distance. Absolutely, unequivocally, what we observe in reality. But yet it doesn't count for it. And it shows us a side profile when giving us an example. So we are equidistant from the thing that seems to not be getting any smaller according to the calculation that you perform. And I assert, Rumpus, that this is because it is a co-opting of angular size and has sod all to do with what things do on a flat plane.
If you can't sense a reality, Nathan, I'll explain this to you. So even you will
but you
understand.
can't obfuscate maths either.
No, I can't. No, of course I can't obfuscate maths. You can't obfuscate maths.
Right.
No.
So go on,
right, here we go. So here's the diagram. So here we've got an observer at A1, and it's looking down, and here's the lovely bulge that Anthony suddenly got all excited about, which is taken into account in the calculation of how much is hidden. And the formula for that is this moderately complicated looking one down here, but I can derive that for you, but I suspect you'll just all glaze over and won't understand it anyway. So that tells you how big this H1 is, and that's a geometric calculation. It's got nothing to do with what zoom you've got, angular resolution, the hidden formula. The Metabug uses a rather less
problem there, Rumpus.
Hold on, let me just finish, Anthony. Well, okay, well, no, I'll answer your point. Can I carry on, Anthony?
Well, not really. This is the problem.
Okay, I'll go into more detail.
Well, I don't mind. I'll summarise it. That's the very problem. You're just giving it as though it is a height, like it was right in front of you, and it gets smaller with distance. No. That's angular size change.
Right. Okay, I'll explain. Okay, I'll get into this in more detail then. This is the geometry. Like you can imagine if this was on a basketball. This is I was an ant, and this is an object on the basketball. It gives you the result in absolute meters. Yeah, an absolute, nothing to do with a viewing operation.
But shouldn't it be relative?
No, hold on. No, it's not. The calculation on this geometry, on this ball sphere type calculator, is not worrying about the perspective operations. It's just
that's the point. That's the point. That's the exact point. It's not relative. Things do get smaller at distance.
Yes, but we're not at distance. We're looking at the size.
Yes, we are. You input the distance into the calculation.
Yes, to determine these angles.
No, to determine the bullshit curve that's actually a co-opting of the angular size. That's why we're pointing out it's not there. And you're trying to dance around it, but it isn't there.
No, I'm not dancing around it. Okay, I'll go into more detail then. Right, to work out.
Here we go. It's the Stuttering Rumpus Show. He's been cornered. Everybody, let's hold his toes right to that fire.
Level. Do you understand? I'm having to think down.
Do I understand? No, I understand that you have no account for angular size change.
You want to work out the size of something in your eye or in your camera, you have to do two things. First of all, you have to establish the absolute size of it in meters. Then you have to do another operation and say how far is it away and what zoom I've got. Then on with that two pieces of information, you can then actually work out how big in pixels it appears to you. But that is a second stage operation. That's a stage you do after determining how many meters you can see. So the geometric calculator in Metabug tells you how many meters are visible.
That isn't right, Rumpus.
I know it uses the distance to do this calculation, Anthony, but it only does that to determine the angle and where the bulge is. Right.
And it doesn't account for the angular size reduction.
Anthony, do you understand the result is in meters?
It's just said it doesn't account for the angular size difference, Rumpus.
Strawman argument.
Strawman, exactly.
Right, Anthony, can you not see from this diagram that you're going to get a result, first of all, of how much in meters you're going to be hidden of the object, and therefore how much is visible?
Yeah, so I understand. But do you understand that you haven't reduced Do you understand that you haven't reduced the height of the target building to fit the angular size resolution maths?
There's nothing. This has nothing to do with angular resolution.
Yes, it does. Let's just get that clear for the audience. Absolutely, unequivocally, things do get smaller as you get further away from them.
That's a viewing operation, Nathan.
Yes, and we are viewing things. That's why we put in the viewer height and the viewer distance, Rumpus, you moron.
Do you understand that?
Don't ask me what I understand. We've established it. We've gone far enough here. The bottom line is the calculation does not account for an angular size change. And I'll assert again why. Because it is a co-opting of angular size change. All the curve calcs do is show people perspective and relabel things. That's all it does.
No one can hear anything one of you are saying because, like,
Rumpus talks continually.
No, Rumpus, because you haven't shut up for 15 minutes. Maybe that might have something to do with it, right?
I'm happy to take turns.
When you can't, I know. Well, please. Well, then let's give me a demonstration of that idea.
Yeah, but that's because I'm being interrupted halfway through a sentence. I'm prepared.
Still
to
haven't shut up for
and then
like
let
this.
Someone else take a turn. No, you're doing it mostly halfway through a sentence and you're interrupting me. But before the concept is being delivered, I'm happy to turns in doing this. I do not want to overtalk people.
Then show us instead of just talking about it, because it obviously shows you might be socially inept and actually, something wrong with you mentally, maybe.
You're interrupting me now. I'm showing you what the geometry does, but you're confused about what the perspective operation does.
We're confused as to what the hell you think you're doing here.
Well, if you can't understand what the basic geometry, then you've got a problem.
Maybe learn how to speak English better because you suck at it. Maybe.
Hold on, Isa, hold on. We understand the geometry. We're saying that only accounting for the Rumpus, shut up. We're saying that only accounting for the geometry does not account for the angular size change.
No, it doesn't.
Right. That's the problem.
Because
that's the problem.
Right, but the angular size thing is a secondary operation. First,
no, we are viewing things, and a primary operation of viewing things is viewing them. So we have a viewer height and we have a viewer distance. What we don't have is an angular size change.
What you're talking about is how big something will appear in your camera or in your eye. That is something that you can determine.
No, how far things are at distance. No, how big things are at distance. Lampposts look smaller at distance.
That's a viewing operation.
And that's what the metaphor operation.
Yeah, viewing operation. That's what we're doing. Viewing things, you idiot.
How do you think you calculate how big something's going to be? First of all, you need to know its absolute size, and then you need to know how far it is away. From those two pieces of information,
then you need to know its angular size based on its distance. Then you need to know how small it is based on perspective, Rumpus. You seem to have left that out. Just because it leaves it out the calculation. Rumpus, stop talking over me. You don't include a third step, which is to account how big it is based on its distance due to angular size change due to perspective. You don't account for that.
When you say how big it is, Nathan, you mean how big it appears in your camera or in your eye. That is an operation.
No,
that is a
how big things appear as they converge towards the horizon.
Right, that's a viewing operation.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing.
Right, so indeed, so that's
yes, right. We're doing viewing operations, so you should include the operation of angular size change, and you don't.
Right. To do a viewing operation,
which is what we're doing.
That is a conversion from 3 dimensions into 2. That's a perspective transformation.
No, the other way around. It's 2 dimensions.
No, it's a 3 dimensions into 2. That is what perspective is.
Rumpus. What you're doing now is conflating orthographic view with perspective.
No, I'm not.
You are.
No.
What we're seeing on screen right now with your page is orthographic, but in real world we have perspective, and there is no
perspective. If you knew anything about perspective operations, you would know that's an operation you do on 3D objects to turn them into 2D objects, so you know how big they are.
Like filming something with a camera, looking at something 3-dimensional and then presenting it on a 2D screen, for example, Rumpus. Precisely what this calculation is for, Rumpus, you moron.
If it's so well understood, how come Metabunk didn't put it in?
Because Metabunk is telling you how many meters of the object are visible, how big it appears in your eye. Hold on, let me finish my sentence, Anthony.
No, the object's too big, Rumpus.
Hold on, let me just finish this 10 seconds on this sentence. But Metabunk could tell you how big something appears if it decided to do a perspective operation on what you could see. So it could say, right, if what zoom camera you zoom set and you
don't. What's this if it had this argument crap? It doesn't. I don't want to hear the if argument, Rumpus. It does not have it. Don't tell us about the if. We're not
If
interested
Metabunk
about if it
knew
had
the
it
zoom
or if
value
you
of
applied
your
it afterwards.
camera,
It is
if
not
Metabunk
applied.
knew the zoom value of your camera, they would be able to tell you with the angular resolution information that zoom would tell
Fair
you.
enough.
No camera is needed. You only need to stare at a set of lampposts going into the distance. You don't need any zoom functionality to account for angular size changes.
Correct.
That is a viewing operation, a perspective
Yes, which is
operation
what we
on
are
the
doing.
3D
We are
object.
viewing
But
things.
hang on, why
That's
do
a
you think the
secondary
Metabunk
thing.
is not that? Why
But
do you think Metabunk is not that?
But Anthony, do you not understand the way you work out how big something should appear in your eye?
Stop
on
asking
camera?
him about whether or not we
Hold on.
understand
Why
about
do you
how
think
big
that the
something should
Metabunk
be.
calculator is not?
Because it's telling you the absolute size in meters that something is.
Yeah,
That's
not the
what it's
relative
designed to
size.
do.
Yeah, we need the
Yes,
relative
because it's got a
size,
zoom
angular
operation.
size needs to be
You could-
accounted
you
for. We
could-
keep saying
if
it
you-
over and
okay,
over again, and you
you
are
could do
ignoring
that,
it,
and-
No,
Rumpus.
you would need an agreed upon point of perspective, like a camera, like you'd need an agreed upon viewing
Yeah, it's called the distance.
screen.
No,
No. But I mean,
you, Anthony.
right. It does
if
make
you were to
sense in
put-
what he's saying,
Anthony,
man.
Sorry,
if
at
you
this
were to
point, Anthony, if you can hear me over Rumpus constantly talking over me, can you bring up from Taboo Conspiracy's video the angular size change calculation, please?
Then the
The
angular
agreed
resolution.
upon,
Rumpus,
the agreed
shut
upon
up
one is just
for a
your
second.
eyes.
Isa, hold on.
So-
Hold on. Anthony, can you bring up the angular size change calculation off Taboo Conspiracy's video, please? And screen share it.
Hang on, let me share my screen. And then go back to Mr. Taboo Conspiracies, which is probably the best video on this point. And if basically Rumpus needs to explain why this is wrong.
Let me look. Hold on. Where? All right. Okay, this is your thing.
Here we go.
Is that what you're after?
I can see
Yes.
what you've got on screen. Angular size thing.
Nathan,
Which
is that what
is-
you want?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Right, so this is a viewing operation. So having established the size of the object and the distance and how far you are away from it, you can work out its angular size. So this is a secondary operation after you've worked out the size of the thing you're looking at. And the Metabunk calculator tells you the size of the thing you can see. That's all it's trying to do.
No,
If you fed
no.
into it, Hold on, let me
Metabonk's
finish my
not-
sentence,
no,
Anthony.
no.
It
Let me
doesn't
finish-
tell you the size, it tells us how much should be seen according to your maths. Doesn't tell you something that should have an extra function tagged on the end. That's just crap you're asserting here.
Rumpus, Metabunk isn't telling you the size of the thing that you can see.
It
It's
is.
telling you this.
It's
It's telling you the
obscure.
size of the thing that you could see if it were right in front of your nose. It's
is
not
giving
telling you the
absolute
size of the thing.
It's telling you the
subject
number
to
of
the distance.
meters, Anthony. It's telling you the number of meters that are above the curve of the object you can see.
Yeah,
As a-
but it
yeah,
isn't
viewing
reducing the
function.
object down.
No,
Viewing
it is-
function.
Absolute measurement. Say for instance, we're looking at your Shellac Point, for instance, your favorite spot. There's 300. I think it's 300 feet high. Doing the calculator will say, right, you can see the top. I don't know, 30 meters. So then, but how big that 30 meters appears to you as Anthony looking at it on St. Bees Beach is entirely dependent on what you do with your camera.
No,
And
it
it'd be-
isn't.
It
It's
is
dependent on how far away
but
it
you
is.
always see that same 30 meters above of Shellac Point. Whatever you do
Right,
with
so
your camera, well, this
I
is an
get it.
important point. I'm making a very important point here, Anthony. The same 30 meters will always be there, but how big it appears to you depends on what you do with your camera. But you'll always see the same top 30 meters of Shellac Point and obscured, whatever it is, 100 odd meters will be
I've
obscured.
just realised that you don't understand the point that was being
I
made.
know, I understand the point exactly. You don't understand basic geometry or perspective, and you don't understand the two operations. I can't believe it.
You can
You're
tell me where
absolutely
this goes
amazing.
wrong. The conclusion of this gentleman's video said that when he did the curve calculator on the two mountains in the video that he's given, Mount Blanc was one of them, and then whatever the other name was right next to it, they both appeared to support each other, and they can't do that. One of them must be wrong, and it must be obvious because of the distances involved. And what he said was, when you do the curve calculation, it tells you the hidden value for both the mountains, and they both were in agreement with each other. That's incorrect.
But what does
However,
that mean? They're in agreement with another. What does that mean?
So what he's
It
saying
means
is,
that
if you only do the
one of them is
calculation on...
wrong.
Hold on, Anthony, let me summarise. If you're only doing the calculation on a flat plane and accounting for the angular size, and then you do the exact same calculation using the Metabunk calculator that ignores angular size, they come out to about the same.
Yeah.
They can't both
when
be
you-
right, can they? We can't simultaneously live on a globe and a flat plane. One of them's got to be wrong. Now, you've conceded, as has Wiggles, that yes, things get smaller at distance. So surely,
You think that's consecutive?
surely we should account for it.
No, because it's a two-stage
No,
operation.
so we don't account for things getting smaller in the distance. That is absolutely absurd.
Because the geometry calculator tells you how many
Because the
meters...
calculation. Because the math says. This is how pathetic the Globers have become. The sacred math says so, so it must be so. We can ignore angular size change because of the sacred maths.
It's a viewing operation.
Yeah, you keep saying this, viewing operation. The sacred math says so, that's the answer.
No.
It's
a viewing operation.
Anthony. You don't understand.
No, Rumpus, it's a viewing operation that Metabunk claims it is addressing.
No, it's
because
not
it says,
a viewing operation. No,
yes,
it's
it
not
is.
doing a viewing operation, Anthony.
It
It's
is,
not
because
doing that. It's telling you
listen,
how many meters
Rumpus,
of a
wait,
distant
let me
object are
answer,
visible. That's
Rumpus.
not a viewing operation.
Rumpus, look, when you put in a distance, we'll go with an arbitrary 30 miles, right? And the viewer height we'll put in at 10. Whatever that object is, when you find out how tall that object is, let's just say it's 1,000 feet. We apply that 1,000 feet because that's the height of it, but we don't reduce for the angular reduction of it because it's not in this maths. If
That's
we
right,
did
because
reduce,
it's not a viewing. This is not giving you a view. If it wanted to give you a little diagram of the view you would see, that'd be an extra thing that MechWest would have to do. At the moment,
which
he's
is what he
just
needs
telling
to
you.
do.
No, well, he doesn't need to do that. He's telling you how many meters are visible of the whatever is mountain, and that will always be the case, no matter where you are with your camera, whether you zoom in or not. There'll always be, say, 200 meters of that mountain that you were looking at just now would
But
be visible.
the mountain isn't 1,000 feet, is it? When it's 30 miles away.
The geometric calculator,
Not geometric, relative size to the observer.
which is a viewing operation.
Yes, that's why it says viewer height.
Right, hang on, Nathan, he's just conceded it's a second, but why is it not in this maths?
Because he's not trying to give you an image on screen of what you will see with your particular zoom setting on your camera. He's telling you how many meters of the mountain will be visible.
Are you saying that all the ballers have misinterpreted what the effect of this curve calculator is?
No, they all understand it. You're the only one who doesn't understand it. You and Nathan, you suddenly developed this strange view, which I can't believe.
No, it's not a strange view. Accounting for things getting smaller at distance should be part of the calculation. Now, when it is part of the calculation for flat Earth, and you use the Metabunk curve calculations in comparison, they come out with the same result. You can't have it both ways.
Well, I mean, you'll have got something wrong in that. I don't know what your flat Earth thing is you're saying, but you'll have got that wrong.
Right.
Angular size and curve calcs basically give you the same result. Now, we all concede that things get smaller in the distance relative to the observer.
It's not giving you the relative size. This Metabunk calculator is not trying to tell you how many pixels big a mountain will appear to you.
Why were you using it then? Why were you using it then? Why were you using it then? Why have you been using it, Rumpus? Why have you been using it then? When you've used it in the Isle of Man debate to compare to the number of pixels you measure, why have you used this calculation?
Correct.
Right. I had to do something extra to work out the number of pixels. I had to work out the resolution.
Work out the number of pixels.
Hold on, let me finish my sentence, Anthony.
Not working out the number of pixels.
Anthony, let me finish my sentence.
Yeah,
and I'll explain
we're not working out the number of pixels. He's absolutely right. We're working out what we can see on a sphere. This is absolutely relative to the observer and a viewing function, and it does not account for angular size change. How many bloody times have we got to say it?
I did not use the calculator to do the thing with the pixels. I had to work out from Anthony's image, by working out the distances between objects in it, what the pixel relationship, so I could work out the zoom value he used. I did not use Metabunk calculator to work out the relationship with pixels.
That's a different point. That's a straw man. That's a straw man, Rumpus.
It is
what
a
you
straw
should
man.
have done to us when we were doing the Isle of Man arguments, you should have said, actually, the height of Snaefell is not 2,000 feet because at 30 miles away, its relative size is only 800 feet.
I don't need to work out the relative size. I need.
Yes, you do. We are viewing things, and you are claiming that what we see is comparable to your maths.
Number of meters, and then I do a perspective transformation on the 200 meters that's visible, and then I can work out how many.
But it's not. You keep saying on the 200 meters that's visible, and that's what the curve calcs tell you.
The curve calc is just trying to tell you how many meters are visible, not how big.
Yeah, precisely, and it's wrong. It doesn't account for the angular size change.
It doesn't need to, because that's a
yes,
function.
it does.
That's a function of viewing it.
Yeah, and we are viewing it, you absolute moron. How many times do we have to tell you this is about viewing stuff? Silence.
Is twice as far away as another object that is half the size, then to your view, they should be pretty much the same size.
That's
if
a
you're
viewing
exactly
operation.
in the middle of viewing.
Nothing to do with
That
this.
includes
We're viewing
a
things.
bulge
That's what we're
from
doing.
the
To do with this,
curvature.
Alwyn. That's
That
nothing to do with the calculation.
includes a
Alwyn,
bulge
Apparently,
from
nothing
the
to
The function of viewing things has nothing to do with the calculations, according to Rumpus. Why on earth are we even doing them then, I have to ask myself. And the reason is because these fallacious idiots use it to produce nonsense proof that you're on a sphere. It's just part of the holy maths for sphere ball believing idiots.
You don't understand basic perspective operations.
Yeah, we do
You
understand
don't-
perspective.
Can I-
You don't even include it in the
Yeah,
maths.
Go ahead, Anthony. Go ahead,
Nathan, can you put my screen back
You
on if
are
it's
on.
not on, please?
You are.
Right, Rumpus, can you see my screen?
Hold on. No. Oh, yes, hold on. Yes, you're showing up the Metabunk calculator, yes?
Yes. So when we were doing all the Isle of Man observations, if it's the case that it's an observer function, why is it that you didn't correct us when you asked us how tall is Snaefell? When we do an observation at 30 miles, for example, and we have the observer height in 10 feet or whatever feet you want, when we apply that to Snaefell at 2,000 feet, wouldn't it be intellectually honest of you to tell us that we need to reduce the height of Snaefell because we're seeing it from 30 miles away, from 2,000 feet down to about 800 feet?
Right, I'll explain again. This thing is not trying to tell you what you will see. It's trying to tell you how many meters are visible. Now, I
So
know
why
you see-
didn't you-
That's the same thing. How much you see and how many meters are visible are exactly the same thing. That's how much you see.
Hold on, I've got an important point that may help Anthony. You've seen the word viewer height there, and you think it's using that to do a perspective calculation. It's not.
No,
it's only
he doesn't
doing
think
it to work
that.
out-
He's saying the opposite. He's saying it's giving you an
Strawman.
orthographic view. You're now strawmanning the hell out of him. That's not what he said.
Yeah, correct. I asked you,
This
why
sounds
did you
like
not
a Coriolis
correct us?
effect discussion.
I asked you, Rumpus, why did you not correct us with the height of Snaefell when it's claimed to be 2,000 feet high, but we're observing it from 30 miles away? That reduces its angular size down so much that it's actually about 800 feet tall, and that's it. Why didn't you correct people with that?
Because it's absolutely relevant to this calculation, because it's trying to return you the absolute number of meters that you can see of Snaefell. When you then decide, oh, let's put it in
but hang on. If the size of the mountain reduces drastically because of the result of perspective, then that makes the effective hidden massive.
Perspective. This has no effect on it. This has got nothing to do with perspective.
Yes, it does. This has everything to do with perspective. It will never change. Things in the distance will always get smaller. That will never, ever, ever change, regardless of whether or not Rumpus includes it in his holy maths for his religious ball belief.
You don't understand perspective.
Yeah, we do.
It's
Things get smaller into the distance and converge at the horizon. There you go. I understand perspective.
Okay then, Nathan, if you understand perspective, how
Yo,
do
but
you work
Rumpus,
out
do
the
they
size?
understand it better than Metabunk? Because they got Metabunk to put the x-axis on, right?
His implementation.
Yes, that's right. You stutter away, Rumpus. And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully for sharing this debate. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel. If you hated this show, you know what to do, but if you liked it, maybe consider sharing it or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!